lovely to see all of you here for another episode of Humans of HR, where today we're going to be talking about something that's very interesting, um, something that anybody associated with HR could either enjoy or dislike. You don't have anybody in between. But in terms of its importance, we know it is important. So once again, thank you so much, John, for joining us today for the conversation. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Harish. Happy Diwali to all our listeners.
Thank you so much. Wishing you the same. Uh, so the conversation that we're going to be having today is going to be nothing short of fireworks, as always. And today we decided to focus on something that, as I said, is extremely important for anybody associated with HR, or, in fact, anybody who works in any organized setup. So we are going to be talking about employee engagement. Um, we know it is important. We know it can have a fabulous impact on how people look at um, their professional journey, and we also know organizations would want to have better employee engagement because we know overall it's going to help retain people for longer. It's going to help people perform at their peak, so on and so forth. The list is long, but we also know, on the other hand, there are very few organizations that are able to get this right. And we know of a lot of organizations who managed to get this wrong. So, the conversation today, I'm equally as eager as our listeners here to understand from you um, what should be the end goal for an HR professional who is in charge of employee engagement. Okay. What should be the end goal and what are the possible means to achieve that? So we're going to be talking about that today. So the first question served right to you. What should be the end goal when somebody is designing an employee engagement calendar for the entire team?
So thank you, Harish. I think, there are three different ways in which you can create employee engagement, in my opinion. Um,
Mhm,
I think the first one is what I'd like to call real engagement,
mhm,
which might imply that there is something which is also unreal engagement. And I like thinking of unreal engagement as all the things that can be categorized under the you know there is this particular activity for which HR, especially in larger organizations, has become very infamous, which is the Rangoli competition.
Oh, oh,
So
I think they should have a different category for disengagement, and I think this would top that list for sure.
yeah, but jokes apart, I think that there's serious enough work to be done in creating real engagement, and I'll talk about that. Um, then I think there is a contextual engagement. The organization is in a particular situation, the business is in a particular situation, um, depending on their where they are in their evolution, in their life cycle. There are or how the market is behaving today vis-a-vis how the market is behaving tomorrow, what's happening to the economy. There are things that are constantly changing in the organization's environment, and there are issues around that. The best example you can look at is the pandemic. I mean, when the pandemic happens, the way that you engage with your employees is very different from how you would have engaged otherwise. And the third kind of engagement is, in my opinion, more to do with culture. It is about either what the organization's founders want in terms of the organizational culture, or a mixture of what people want and what we as human beings are attuned to and what we look out for in the workplace, and how do we together as an organization address some of those issues in terms of, for example, the need for belonging to a tribe. So there are these three, and I think it'll be, and each of them has insights which are fairly in depth. And maybe we can today in this episode talk about the first one, which is the real engagement.
Okay, so the three pieces that you see. First one is the real engagement, and maybe we will, along the sidelines, also talk about the unreal engagement, and and then we have the contextual engagement, and the third one was
Culture. It has to do with culture.
right, the engagement which has to do with culture. So I think it plays out fairly well. I mean, today let's focus on the real engagement part of it. Um, so again, I'll take you back to the first question. When designing something that comes under real engagement, what should be the end goal for an HR professional, and
Very
how could
simple,
one go about doing it?
very simple, Harish. The person, every single person who's working in an organization
Mhm.
should actually enjoy doing what they're doing. If they're not enjoying what they're doing, you'll always have suboptimal results. You'll have suboptimal outcomes. And
Okay.
along with that, you will have a lot of other fallouts of every single individual who's not enjoying what they're doing. So the end goal is to ensure that people find meaning in what they do. A lot of times, that people are not able to themselves create meaning and understand the value of their own work. And that is where a lot of thoughtfulness and a lot of design, a lot of interventions are required, both from the managers, and the HR. And I think the HR comes in up ahead. Their intervention needs to be even before you hire somebody. So to make that practical, there has been a lot of research on, um, in particular, what is called job satisfaction. By the way, engagement is not job satisfaction. Job satisfaction is only one part of engagement.
Great.
Um, or happiness. It's only one part of engagement. So I think there are these two researchers called Oldham and Hackman. They're the most famous. There are others who looked at job design, but these uh, five folks came up with. Sorry, looks like we have some disengagement with the two little dogs in the house. Um,
I mean,
and
it wasn't very apparent.
audible.
So,
One. Okay. So well, that's one sign of whether people are engaged or not. And we talked about this earlier. What's the background noise you hear? Is it a hum, which means that people are engaged, they're reasonably happy, they're enjoying what they're doing, or is it complete silence? If it is complete silence, then probably there is some trouble. If it is a lot of noise and chaos, then of course it's a different kind of trouble. So all of these are indicators. And coming back to Oldham and Hackman, what they found, and this is typically called the job characteristic model. And what they found is that there are 5 factors that need to be present in every role for the person who is delivering that role, who is in that role, to be satisfied, at least satisfied in that role. I'm not talking about happiness. I'm not talking about engagement. Now, where is this coming from? A very simple fact that the work that we do, whatever it is that we do, has an impact on us.
Mhm.
There's a physical impact, of course. If, for example, your work requires labor, there is, of course, the more bigger, unseen one, which is the psychological impact.
Mhm.
What we do for 8 hours at least every day affects us deeply. And so one of the examples is that, um, if you're stuck in traffic for a longish time, road rage happens to you. It is only later that you wonder why did I lose it? And
Correct.
so what happens to us has an impact on us. And we tend to respond to that through our behaviors, through our mental frames, through our attitudes, through our um, happiness, unhappiness, etc. And then that kind of spills outwards as well. And that can either create a contagion, it can create a virtuous cycle, it can create a vicious cycle around us and for us. And so it is important to understand that typically five elements that uh, Oldham and Hackman had identified in this job characteristic model. In the job design, they call it task variety. Variety is that we need to be to in our job, in our role, we need to be able to get to do different kinds of things. Otherwise, if we just keep doing one kind of thing, we'll get very bored. And so you need variety. The second that thing they call it variability, task variability, which means that for the different things that I'm doing through the day, do I get to use very different capabilities and skills? In one occasion, am I kind of using my mind to kind of create a document? In another one, am I interacting with somebody else, doing a discussion or a negotiation? In a third one, am I presenting something to somebody to influence them? In the fourth one, am I thinking about how to um, change a product or a service, etc. So each of if all of our capabilities, different capabilities, and different muscle sets, so to say, in our body and mind, are exercised, then we feel fulfilled. We feel as if we have kind of put in a good day's work. We feel very satisfied. We feel very happy about what we about everything that we've done. If not, we feel that only a little bit of my capability was utilized, and so we tend to feel um, kind of a little useless, not as engaged, etc.
Mhm.
Third one is significance. Do I understand how the work that I'm doing is impacting others? And that can create a lot of these three factors are what creates a lot of meaning at an individual level for the person in terms of the work that they're doing. If
Right. So
any
it's task variety, variability, and we were
significant,
talking about significance. So significance, is it more to do about how what I do
where
fits in the larger scheme of things?
yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
So the example is that a lot of jobs, and especially in a very complicated and complex world today, they are kind of parceled into small packets. So an individual may not have the ability to see where it adds up. What value is it contributing to the end user, to the customer, or to anybody at all? And therefore, it's important for them to be able to see the outcome or to be able to visualize. And this is where the managers can help them build that perspective. The orientation that organizations give, depending on how well they do it, will create that significance and value in the person's mind, because this value is in the person's mind, essentially. Um, for example, the person who's standing at a station in a conveyor belt and just tightening one bolt or putting on one sub assembly cannot really see or feel where their work is going. It's fairly monotonous. It's you don't understand its significance. It's and so you can get very disengaged with it. You can do it very mechanically, etc. By the way, that is supposed to cause what psychologists discovered in immediate post-industrial Europe was something called angst, and that
Hmm.
you feel upset and angry, but you don't know why, and that leads to a lot of violence in the social context, including, for example, road rage is also an example. If you're kind of doing something through the day which is very disengaging, it's very boring, it's very repetitive, you end up feeling rage, you end up feeling angst, as they defined it. So yeah, these three. Now,
Talking about significance,
yeah,
um, it somehow reminds me of this anecdote of a U.S. president who was at the NASA center just when America was trying to put a man on the moon.
yeah,
And walking on the corridors, he bumps into a janitor, and true to their culture, he asks him, "How you doing?" And he says, "Working really hard to put a man on the moon."
yeah,
So, a janitor and the kind of significance associated to everybody who were part of that,
yeah,
I think surely aligns people to the larger goal, and
yeah.
everybody feels that they are playing their part in the larger scheme of things. So, significance surely is something that has to be inbuilt in the whole process.
Yeah. The problem will start after you put the man on the moon.
Ah, the
Because
claims. Right.
a man to put on the moon, great, I mean, you can align everybody. But what do you do after that? And organizations live, beyond
True,
each
true.
project. And so I think we do therefore need to look at it more holistically, and that's where the other two parts that I mentioned about will come into play. But very good point. So the fourth one is the most important, if you ask me, in today's world, and that is to do with autonomy. How much of a say, how much of freedom do I have as an employee to do what I'm expected to do? Am I very rigidly bound by processes and systems, and there is only this way that it can happen? Or do I have some say in how I deliver it? And will I kind of be allowed by my boss to do it the way that I want, or is there a constant monitoring and a kind of repercussion if I don't do it the way the boss tells me? Now, here is it's not that it's not that autonomy is paramount in every situation. No, in jobs that do not require a lot of complex decision making, don't have a very high cognitive load. You don't have to think a lot. It's you just have to execute. There may be a little less autonomy can will still kind of not create problems. But the moment you have high complexity in the work that a person needs to do, complexity means that there are a lot of interrelated parts and
A lot
a
of moving parts.
lot of moving parts. There are a lot of dynamics both within those parts and in the external environment. And to be able to navigate all of that, you need to be able to think through, and each situation could be a little different from the last one. And so, there, if people don't have autonomy, they will actually tend to get physically sick. There's a lot of research around that people who do very complex work but have very little autonomy tend to end up getting a lot of cardiac problems and issues, in health issues, especially to do with cardiac problems and, of course, depression and other psychological issues as well.
Mhm.
So I think the higher the complexity, the more is the autonomy that the organization needs to create for each role. The last one is something uh, today is built into the work process itself, and therefore can get delivered very mechanically, and therefore be a problem in itself, which is feedback. When I do something, is there somebody who is appreciating me if I did a good job? Is there somebody who's telling me what could I have done differently? What could I have done better? If it's just an okay job, or if I've made a mistake, is somebody coming and helping me understand? Is there a feedback that tells me how could I have avoided that mistake, and how will I, what should I change going forward so that I don't have that problem later? Now, each of these five factors are important, and please understand these are the baseline. If we don't even have that, the person definitely is not going to be satisfied or happy, or will have definitely some angst, will have some issues. Uh, and how do we look at jobs? What I find is that most startup organizations and smaller organizations don't put a lot of thought into as they grow bigger. When they are smaller, of course, the variety and variability is very high, and so is autonomy, and so is ownership, and therefore all the other attendant benefits from it. But as you start scaling up, you have to kind of take a cookie cutter, and so you just cut out jobs or roles based on convenience, saying that let one person do this, let another person do this, without understanding that these other factors also need to be there. And so I think if you've not put attention there in terms of your job design, then you can do all the Rangoli competitions you want.
Right. So, um, for engaged employees, the HR or the leadership or the entire organization needs to focus on the job design where there is variety, task variety, where people are able to do multiple things so that they're not doing this just to break the monotony. Variability, so that they're able to engage different skill levels or different competencies that they have. Third is associate significance to what people are doing. Significance is important. And the fourth one is autonomy,
Autonomy,
right? And the fifth one is
feedback.
feedback. I mean, so the job design becomes important. I completely. I was smiling when you spoke about feedback, was because in Calcutta we were playing football once, and it was a fairly big ground where we had a goal post without a net,
Hmm.
and unfortunately I was the goalkeeper.
Hmm.
Okay, and one of my friends, he kicked the ball. It went above my head, and I missed it. And I turned around because there was no net. I had no clue whether the ball had gone inside the goalpost or had gone past. And I was asking my other teammates, "Is this a goal?" And because it was a goal, my friends were already upset with me because I let the goal in. And now I turn around and ask them whether it's a goal. So now I see that because the feedback, the net wasn't there. I never got a feedback whether it was in or out. Surely made me feel extremely clueless about what just happened.
Hmm.
Right. So for employee engagement, the foundation has to be the job design. If the job design is haywire, and
You're not
you
going anywhere. Forget
yeah
about
you
engagement.
take them out for parties every alternate week, it's still not going to fix that
They'll
problem.
enjoy the party, they will not be engaged.
Now I have a question for you, Chief. Um, Based on your experience and mine, we've spoken to a lot of engineers. I mean, and I'm also counting the conversation that we have with ourselves. Most of the engineers today did not set out to become engineers.
Did
Okay,
not set out to become?
engineers.
Right.
Okay, it wasn't their goal to become an engineer, and they just landed up there. Now they finish a course, they pick up a job. Um, so somewhere deep down, there is a belief that this is not something that I I enjoy doing. Somewhere It's there in their minds, and then um, and after the first 2 3 years, obviously there are a lot of questions that people explore a lot of options. But once the grind of life starts to cut in, they realize that the options are slightly narrowing down, and they need to hold on to what they're doing, irrespective of whether they are phenomenally good at that, whether they enjoy that, or whatever the condition. Now, in and I've come across mid segments where the entry barriers are not very high, right? You look at top tier organizations, the entry barriers are high, so maybe I mean, we come across people who are passionate about their jobs. In places where the entry barrier is not high, it's high volume kind of a scenario. We come across a lot of people who, at the back of their mind, know that they are not phenomenal in what they're doing. Now, how can the organization uh, create an environment where they feel engaged
Hmm.
with what they do,
Hmm.
so that the ship sails?
Hmm. I think these are very good questions. I think there are three or four very distinct questions within this. So let me quickly try and unpack these and try and address each of these. The first one, that they're not good engineers, they didn't want to be engineers. Now, of course, I think that there is a cultural issue where if a child does reasonably well in mathematics in class one, um, unfortunately, the society and the parents end up forcing this person to become an engineer. So that's a cultural issue. I think it's changing a little bit now, but it was a cultural issue. Having said this, I don't think engagement and passion for what you're doing has anything to do with education. I think
Fair enough.
perhaps education only creates barriers. And one of the educationists whom I love and whom I follow, and I encourage everybody who's interested in education to look up his videos, Sir Ken Robinson. And his research finds out that people in kindergarten think at the level of a genius. Their creativities are at the level of a genius. Until by the time they come out of high school, all of that creativity has been kind of ironed out of all the children. If you survive, the iconic movie Three Idiots. If you really think about it, mm, the character there of Rancho, while we kind of really love that character, the fact is that he was who he was in spite of the system through which he had to go. In fact, he's one of the few people whom the system could not catch and conform. It was his two other friends whom the system had caught and it had crushed. I mean, think about it. Somebody who's very passionate about engineering. I think this friend Raju did want to get into engineering. And you crush the living daylights out of all interest in this subject. So the way that our education system is set up is also problematic. So it's a very different issue. I don't think it's right to get into details here. Maybe we can do that as a separate discussion.
Mm.
But the other piece here, which is important in my mind, is how do you find and create passion for what you're doing? And that is something which is not dependent on what educational background you come from. I think it has to do with, and each human being comes with the software of being innately curious. And so, if this curiosity can be brought back and be made alive, which needs an environment, which technically is called psychological safety. And there are four kinds of psychological safety. And these are important for building employee engagement. The first one is that you feel comfortable being who you are, that you have a kind of a psychological safety of of not having to uh, think twice about or to feel that you don't fit in, etc. The second one is to do with your ability to make mistakes and learn in a safe space. That is the learner psychological safety.
Mhm.
Then there is a third one, which is to do with contributor psychological safety, that you feel no hesitation in being able to contribute with your ideas, with your suggestions, um, with adding value where you think you can add value, etc., without hesitating. The fourth one is a kind of a confrontational one where you feel comfortable to be able to raise questions, to push back something which you think is not right, where you have the safety for being able to do that. So these four elements in psychological safety that create some that help in creating the space where people will be able to be themselves and be able to contribute, have a say, have creative confrontations which will create better solutions, better outcomes, etc. So this is in addition to the job design. So
Mhm.
these two together are, in my mind, what create the real engagement.
Fabulous. Now,
Actually, for
uh,
any, well, clarifications or questions, I'm happy to answer.
so fabulous. Now we'll connect some dots because the statement from which we started the second half of the conversation of some people feeling that they're not cut out for engineering or they're not meant to become engineers. It's a curiosity that needs to be reignited. People need to find a purpose, help people find purpose, help people become curious about what the organization is doing, what is their role, and how this adds up in the bigger picture. Uh, that could make people believe that they belong and they add value. And I think it also boils down to the individual self worth.
That's
Uh,
very much so.
right? So the job design helps them, and the curiosity and the self worth. The
Yeah.
minute these check boxes, I don't call them check boxes, but the minute we have these ingredients in play,
Hmm.
I think there is a much higher likelihood of people feeling engaged
Hmm.
with the organization, with the team, um, with the organizational goals, and I think that's from where a lot of things could start.
Absolutely.
And and I think that's when even the mundane tasks like a Rangoli competition
Will
finds a lot of people
happen. Very
participating,
much. Absolutely.
right? And then there are people. I mean, you'll have to drag people from their workstations, but something very mundane. You see everybody participating
Yeah.
because that's how it is,
Yeah.
and then this is my space.
Yeah.
But I mean, it reminds me of a time when I've come and Sundays. The idea was to engage.
Hmm.
I mean, first week of the month, there is this luxury of stepping out, but towards the third and fourth Sunday of the month, we don't have the luxury of stepping out, but the engagement is still there.
Yeah.
You find ways to engage, and
Yeah.
the degree of engagement was always high. I mean, it could be sitting around and playing a game of cards or caroms, and
Yeah.
because the intent was there,
Yeah.
everybody participated.
Yeah.
So
So I
it's not
think
necessarily about the activity, nature of the activity,
you
but
put
how
your
we
finger
engage.
on that. You put your finger on that, on the essence of it, which is that, see, the whatever activities happen when people feel engaged are the right activities. But if you're imposing that in order to create engagement when the engagement, the grounds for engagement are not there, then it's a wasted effort. So true.
That.
And I think it's the managers and the leaders who play a very important role in building that environment, in creating that understanding, in getting people to feel safe and to feel and to want to get engaged. They're the ones who are able to help provide perspectives to somebody who's not feeling very good about whatever they are doing. And then, when the manager explains, is able to give a different perspective, helps them understand it differently, is when suddenly people start finding more meaning, and they're able to apply themselves. To my mind, all of us, and this is a central characteristics, and especially of high achievers, we have this need for mastery. We have this innate need to excel in doing whatever we are doing.
Mm,
There's
mm, mm.
intrinsic kind of pleasure that we get when we do something well. And we've all watched all of these videos which feel very satisfying, where somebody is, making some food item or flipping this ice cream, or doing something which is at a master
A
level.
level of mastery, correct.
And so all of us have this innate need to master stuff that we do. And there are two circuits in our brains which help us do this. And
Mhm.
so maybe I'll talk about it later in the cultural piece, because that's more related to the cultural piece. But it helps us, for example, make we are tool makers as a species.
True.
We're tool makers, and we've reached here because everything around us is a tool. A book is a tool, a specs is a tool, a mobile phone is a tool for expanding our resources, our reach, our capabilities. It is leveraging whatever it is that happens to be within us and outside of us. And so we have to tap into this need for each and help each individual kind of tap into this need for excellence. And interestingly, the process for achieving excellence is the same. It doesn't matter what field you try and become excellent in. The principles that you learn along the way are applicable to everything else in life. Of course, some are adjacent to the area where you have created a mastery. Kapil Dev, when he left cricket, retired from cricket, and he became a professional
A
golfer.
pro golfer. Yeah.
And I think within a year, he was amongst the top 10 professional golfers in the country. That's
Mm.
an adjacent, there's still a ball, there's still something to hit the ball with. There is a trajectory, there's a wind blowing, all of these things, distance, speed,
Swing.
swing, all of these things are
Mhm.
there, but slightly different from crickets, but still in an adjacent field. My bet is that if you're able to help people uncover ways by which they can transfer their existing mastery of something into a mastery of another field, especially what is related to either their work or their study, they will do well. What outstanding coaches and leaders are able to do is to help people see the path and help people connect that innate need to excel into channelized and focused into efforts that create very tangible outcomes. So, to me, that's the essence of engagement as well. But
Yes. So if I was to very quickly summarize the real engagement part, I think the first focus has to be on job design. Get that right. People already turn up engaged, and then you can play with that soft door as much as you want. You can make anything that you want out of that. Next is to find ways to rekindle the curiosity of individuals, um, so that they feel they are contributing towards something, and there is that innate self-worth that we are able to tap onto. And the third one is the mastery that everybody by default wants to chase. And if we are able to play catalyst in people achieving that or moving towards that, I think we will have people engaged when they turn up to work on a daily basis, when they log in every day. So I think that's thought
Okay.
engagement, which is that's on for the next session. Back to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So one last piece that I would like to add for the humans of HR here is what
Hmm.
can they do? I think the best thing that they can do,
Hmm.
because a lot of times you land up in a situation, the job description has then job design, that part is already over. You have no say in it. So what do you do now? Uh, Except Rangoli competition. Here is what you can do. I encourage you to shadow every single role that is around you. At least spend a day with each different role and maybe sample at least two or three people who are doing the same role. You will get to understand where the shoe pinches. You will get to exactly know what kind of a mind frame is this role putting this person into. And so you will also therefore then know what to do there in that role, what to add, what to change, and what else to do there that can take away some of the pain, as well as it'll build a lot of respect and understanding within you about what people are doing. And so it makes you kind of more empathetic. It makes you more understand where what is the genesis, what's the root cause of the problems that you're having.
Mm.
You can say, look, people are leaving this job. I don't know why, because somebody's paying them 2,000 rupees more. Go and try and do that job on your own, or just shadow the person who's doing the job. You will understand what is the real hell that that person is going through in that role. And so then you will be less kind of forgiving on yourself by saying that, no, somebody paid more money and so people left. And have you done your homework? Have you figured out what's the ground reality for that role in my organization? If it's a salesperson, have you ridden in that bike with that salesperson for at least a day in Bangalore traffic? You've given this person a target of meeting five
Mhm.
potential customer meetings every day. Try doing that. Try and see what happens when you get stuck at this Silk Board junction. Of course, it's figuratively speaking, all of these situations are everywhere. Um, unless you walked a mile in the other person's shoes, you don't know what the reality is. And I encourage you to do that. This way, you will be able to add tremendous value to not only the crux of the you know design of that role, but also in terms of performance management, also in terms of the policies that you have in your organization. These are not then drawn by somebody sitting in an ivory tower and thinking that whatever has been designed
Great.
appropriate. And so you'll be able to make the shift that is needed to help create that engagement. Back to you.
Fabulous. So add a generous dose of empathy to the previous summary, and I think we have a fantastic recipe to create real engagement in organizations where HR, more than HR, think like humans of HR. So thank you so much for that a beautiful explanation on engagement, employee engagement, and there are two more episodes that we're going to be talking about. Creating contextual engagement and engagement where we leverage culture to help everybody understand and create that magic in that organization. So thank you so much once again, and to all our viewers of this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do like, share, and subscribe this video as much as possible, because we are trying to create a tribe, and this is one tribe that surely needs to grow. Yes, I'm talking about humans of HR. Thank you so much once again. See you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you, Harish. Bye bye.